Welcome back to New Persuasive Words. I am, as always and ever, Scott Jones.
And I'm Bill Bohr.
Well, Bill, the president appeared with the King of Jordan today.
Yeah, I read about that. And um, I, that's all the King of Jordan needs. More unsettled Palestinians in his territory.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, but I think this is the challenge, right? It's a lot of people.
A lot of people.
Where do you put? Well, look, if you redevelop it, the people, it'd be like better than Atlantic. You see what I did in Atlantic City? Okay.
Yes, we've seen what he did.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
it was
that's
fantastic.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
And if any of our viewers or listeners have not spent any time in Atlantic City post Trump, yeah, he did. He did a job there. That's for sure. Yeah. But at any rate, we also kudos to the Philadelphia Eagles. You're broadcasting live.
Big win. I was watching some video. There were actually people carrying street lights, traffic signals.
Traffic signals.
People had pulled them out of the ground.
Well, that kind of pulls the room together. Put that little traffic light there in the corner.
You say stop. I say go, go, go. Yeah, Philadelphia, a friend of mine said you are the worst fans in the sense of, and I had to say that there's something to that. Pittsburgh, they don't destroy the city if Pittsburgh wins.
No.
Very few cities destroy the city to mark a celebration of victory.
People were shot in Kansas City last year, so yeah, I mean, it's a nice, fine Midwestern town. First of all, I think Philadelphia fans are awesome. I mean, I'm a Steeler fan. I've spent most of my adult life around Philadelphia, but once a Steeler fan, always a Steeler fan. But I think first of all, they're knowledgeable, they're passionate, they're insane. I don't know if at the new football. I've been there multiple times, but I know at the old football stadium, which was a pit. It was a pit, but it's a horrible place to watch baseball. But they had a municipal court that would actually function during the games, in the belly of the stadium.
Yeah, because it was easier to take people just to do all the legal work there than to put them in the car and take them to the local South Philly.
Right.
To lock them up and stuff. So they just had a magistrate there.
But
see, that's good government.
That's good government. It's workable. That's very efficient. Very efficient.
That's the boys at Doge need to look at that.
There we go. That's a model. Yeah. But congratulations, Eagles. It was a dismantling. You have to go back to like the it reminds me a little bit of the Bears. The Bears years ago took apart the New England Patriots. This is pre-Tom Brady, but it was just an old-fashioned butt kicking. Yeah, and kudos to the team. They were better at every position this past Sunday. Yeah,
just plain out better. Just like this country is better. We're making things better. I mean, things are going so well. Yeah. Fantastic. Okay.
Yeah, I just saw plenty of social media people are saying supporting cleaning up the corruption. Yeah, that's exactly what's going on. Yeah.
What's interesting? What do you do though? I think this is just one of the limits of the Constitution, largely because I think there's an honor-based culture in the 18th century that just the threat of impeachment would loom so large. I mean, you just had an honor kind of client system.
Right.
If a president decides, screw the courts, I'm gonna go my own way, and the constitutional crisis is that the only remedy is impeachment, right? That's if we think a president is lawless, if you think a president is abusing, is overstepping their bounds of the executive office. Right. The founders don't leave you anything except impeachment.
Well, the trouble is, okay, so you're in contempt of federal court. So who do you call to enforce it? The federal marshals.
Right. Who the president. That's why, I mean, this is why you have the problem, right? Because
right, exactly. Right.
this is why the Justice Department has the policy that we don't indict sitting presidents, because they run the Justice Department.
Right. Right.
So it's just a quirk of the system that this is, I tend to think Donald Trump is a high school civics teacher's fantasy, because it just brings up all these situations that were hypothetical before, but now are real.
Yeah, it's with Sam Adams and Patrick Henry. That's why they didn't go to the Constitutional Convention, right?
There you go.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway,
I have not yet begun to fight.
Oh, there we go.
That was Patrick Henry.
Yeah, but Sam Adams eventually made a nice beer. So
very nice,
yeah,
very nice microbrew. No, it's not a microbrew really, but
it's been bought by the big guys now, right?
It's big. It's big. It's very big, very huge. Okay, it's large, just like what we're gonna do with Gaza. Is gonna be so big.
Yeah, no, that's I mean, the tragedy upon tragedy, but nonetheless, I mean, let's see who's happy right now in the world. Netanyahu's thrilled.
Netanyahu's.
He might
look. He's not being prosecuted for anything. He's he's got Trump.
Trump is threatening to.
He's got Trump. Trump
is ready to finish the job that he tried to do. So, regardless, I think Putin's probably, even though Putin's pretending to be mad, I think he's pretty happy. So, at any rate, it's a sad state of affairs, unless you like totalitarianism, right? Unless you are tired of democracy.
I mean, the question is, are the trains running on time?
I don't know if the trains have ever run on time very well. How are they in Philadelphia? I haven't been on.
Pretty good.
Yeah, never been.
But you know what the thing is about public transit now, with the advent of the smartphone, is that it's not as much of an inconvenience, because you always know where the bus is, where the train is. You can watch it in real time, so it's not.
Yeah. So different animal, yeah.
So you don't really need Mussolini. We always need Mussolini for something, but
he financed a beautiful church in the Holy Land. But
by the way, no Mussolini, no Hitler comparisons, especially no Mussolini comparisons, because as Jonah Goldberg told us, Mussolini was an intellectual who read books. Like who knew who John Huss was, who knew, I mean, this is not, Trump is
right.
To put him in comparison with Mussolini is really to do a disservice to Mussolini.
That's right. Give
El Duce his props.
El Duce his props.
I'm just saying.
All right.
I call him like I see him, Bill.
Very good.
Look, let it not be said. Let it not be said. Never be said that I didn't defend Mussolini on this podcast.
Right. Mark it.
That's like, remember in Crimes and Misdemeanor, so where he makes the film about Alan Alda's character, and Alan Alda is like going this rant, and he cuts away to Mussolini, Del Duce pounding on a podium, whatever, and Woody Allen says, I mean, I don't know why he was so offended. It's like he'd never been compared to Mussolini before.
And by the way, I do see in honor of your new hero being indicted, you're only wearing a T-shirt.
I am a T-shirt. I am in solidarity with Steve Bannon.
I thought you'd have 4 shirts on today. But
no. Down to the T-shirt today. Yeah, down to the T-shirt.
You're a deconstructed.
I'm a T-shirt. I love Steve Bannon. Like, let it not be. I'll defend Mussolini and I'll defend Steve Bannon.
Well, here we
all go. In the same breath.
So one of your friends thought I was too hard on Jordan Peterson. So I just want you to let those people know that I'm currently watching one of those Jordan Peterson panel discussions. And
what was Peterson wearing?
I don't remember, but I'm trying. My biggest challenge is not to. He's got a great, interesting bunch of people around him. Well, not people; they're all white men. But
no, white men are people too, Bill.
They are people too. So I could be more specific. I didn't have to be.
Corporations are people too. Remember Mitt Romney and Citizens United? Corporations are people too, Bill.
Yeah. Well, at any rate, but some really great scholars, I mean, he must have said, how do we get Bill on how do we get a good side of Bill? So he gets one of the leading Christian Neoplatonist scholars from Cambridge on. So like, all right, you had me at
You had him at Neoplatonism.
you had me at Plotinus, right? You had me at Plotinus, but nonetheless. But anyway, so I am listening. I'm trying not to fast forward every time Peterson speaks because he's the
I mean the Bible. Oh yeah,
he's the least interesting person on the panel, but he's 250,000 people have watched this thing already.
The funny thing is, and we were talking about this the other day when you told me this, it's strange that Peterson and his religious sensibilities and the work he's done in the Bible is lauded by traditionalists and conservatives because he's kind of a poor man's liberal Protestant. I mean, it's not so, which is fine. I'm not, I mean, he can muse on whatever he wants, but
he's no Paula White, that's for sure.
No, Paula, which our friend Paul Zoll is. He's going to Paula White's church.
Don't say it. Don't even if it's true. Don't even say it out loud.
He has said that's a great church. He's gone there. He's worshipped there.
All right,
and celebrate. He said that the Holy Spirit is alive and well. PZ says at Paula White's church. I saw a video of that place. I was not impressed even with the parking lot. I don't think I would not go there just based on the dingy state of the parking lot.
All right. Well,
I'm just saying, for somebody that's mega, I'm surprised Trump's like, okay, I like my mega church charlatans with nice parking lots. Okay.
Well, you've been to Joel Osteen's place.
I've used the bathrooms there. No, that's a nice facility. That's a nice place.
Well, the Houston Rockets used to play.
Yeah,
there.
Yeah. Well, I think it's probably nicer now than it was then.
Well, I'm sure it was. Sure is. Yeah. Anyway, well, I think he's making more money than he used
to. No, absolutely. Joel Osteen's not a bad basketball player. I understand. And I once saw a thing about him on 60 Minutes, and they went to him at the gym, and he was working out with 2 45-pound plates on each side of the bench. So he's a strong guy. He looks stringy on the broadcast, but he's not. He's
all right.
He's a substantive guy. He's a power forward.
There we go.
Sometimes what I know about things disturbs me. Like there's so much in my hard drive that should be defragmented. It's just wasted space.
Yeah.
What am I carrying that around for?
I don't know why.
What Joel Osteen benches?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's all useless.
Useless.
Now to the mind-body problem.
There we go. That's a good intro. Good intro to our.
How about we switch to Scott's mind problem? Forget the body, just the problem of my mind. What's going on in there?
All right. So, by the way, if you are an exorcist and available in the tri-state area,
please
drop us a note. Right. Yeah.
Please, we'll get you we'll get you an Orvis hat.
We'll get you an Orvis hat.
We can get you an Orvis hat next week, I'm sure.
Next week, absolutely.
What if Orvis would make a hat with like our little logo on it? That would be cool.
Well, and by the way, if you're not into exorcisms but are looking for fly fishing equipment, please check out Orvis.
Orvis, our sponsor. Orvis,
our sponsor.
They make a great fishing rod and a nice hat. I don't have my hat on now because it's warm.
No, but it's a nice and dry. But anyway, fine, very nice hats. Yes. All right, so we have a philosophical topic tonight that has theological implications, of course.
Let's start with Socrates. Yeah, Socrates, dude.
You want me to get my guitar out? You want me every time you say
that was such a great movie. It's such a great Bill and Ted's.
Bill and Ted's, yeah.
Yeah, so I was thinking, I'm rereading this book by Todd McGowan called Embracing Alienation, Why We Shouldn't Try to Find Ourselves. And I jotted some notes down on it.
A fellow Vermonter, by the way.
A fellow Vermonter, yeah. At the University of Vermont.
I bet you he has an Orvis hat.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure he has many, many, many hats. Wears many hats, has many hats. Yeah, so it's a great book, and the subtitle is Why We Shouldn't Try to Find Ourselves. Embracing Alienation, Why We Shouldn't Try to Find Ourselves. And it's interesting. So I'm trying to use my Substack. Peter Lightheart used to use his blog. I haven't read it in a while, but I mean, he used to use it as an online notebook. And I'm trying to use Substack as kind of an online notebook to keep, just jot thoughts down. So I have them. And, it's interesting because I jotted down some stuff or typed down some stuff. I didn't really jot anything, I suppose, if we're trying to keep the metaphor or describe. We're not even a metaphor. We're just trying to keep the verbs accurate. So I wrote down some stuff here about the book, and he really talks about, the book is really about the problem of identity and alienation, that oftentimes we feel conflicted. We feel like we're pulled in a million directions, that we play all of these roles in life: son, father, pastor, CEO, business person, neighbor, Christian, sibling, whatever it is. We have all these, and we have all these communities, right? I mean, Christian or Democrat or Republican or Vermont, we have these, maybe you're a devotee of some religious order or something, and we have these identities orient us in the world, and yet they never quite give us the security they promise, right? The identities often say to us, look, we know the world's a chaotic place. We know it's a fractious place. We know it's a place where there's uncertainty and ambiguity and tension and pain. And here's the identity. Here's the story that makes sense of it all. And oftentimes these stories never quite, I mean, the term I use, I think when I wrote some stuff down, was they're like a blanket that's just too short. Right. And you're kind of trying to adjust yourself to stay, and something's always uncovered. And that sort of feeling of, hey, I'm not quite, none of these identities quite do it. I'm not really identical with any of them. Who am I? What's going on? Who am I really in the world? And what's the true me? What's my authentic self? That feeling can feel alienating, right? But he would say that's the gift, subjectivity. That's where the action happens. That far from being problematic for McGowan, like it is for a lot of philosophers. He's got this one phrase here. I think I wrote this down. That yeah, this is great. I write, the problem is that the emancipation that alienation offers is fought everywhere we turn. And then I'm quoting McGowan. We most often think of our existential and political projects as attempts to overcome alienation. Although they are important exceptions, most of our struggles target alienation. Most of our struggles target alienation as something they hope to eradicate. Therapists imagine that they help patients to attain self-identity. Political revolutionaries strive for society in which they can live in harmony with others. Ecological activists work toward a future form of existence that will be in touch with the rest of the natural world. Despite the radical diversity of these projects, alienation is in each case what they work to stamp out, although it might not be named as such. In the predominant ways of thinking, alienation is the problem to be overcome, not what enables all struggle in the first place. So for him, alienation can actually be a gift, because when you're alienated, when you don't actually fully fit in with any of your identities, when you feel these tensions, and when you feel a little out of place in the world, that's often where there's a liberation to that, right? You can experiment, you can live a different story, you can try alternatives, you can be more imaginative, right? That it's not that feeling, if you can sit with it, if you can stare it in the face a little bit, if you can indwell it, live with it a little bit, that it's not maybe the problem to eradicate, but it's actually maybe something that. And then I wrote at the end, I never thought about this, but I said that one thing that I came to was, I said I used to hate saying my body aches today. I punished my body at the gym. My body is tired. I thought the use of the term my body betrayed a problematic dualism that has beset Western thought for millennia. I'm rethinking this, Bill. I am rethinking this.
Yeah.
I'm not fully identical with the blood, bone, skin, and other organs that I walk around the world. And McGowan sees this insight as a gift. For him, what makes me different from the rest of the animal kingdom is the ability to grasp my own lack of self-identity. So maybe I'm not quite my body. Maybe embracing that offers the gift of a little liberation.
Yeah, I actually think that's particularly. I think not being our bodies, or at least understanding that, might be a corrective to the extremes that have happened. Right, uh, what people are doing to maintain a certain youthful look to the point where they become grotesque. Right, our plastic surgery things. What's attractive now in many ways has become grotesque and exaggerations and things like that. And I've always appreciated. Now, again, I think you can you can ask some legitimate, serious questions about the ascetic movement, right? And the kind of punishing, the ways they punish themselves and deny themselves, and whatever. But I always liked Francis, who arguably died young, because younger than he should have, because of his extreme ascetic practices. Um, but he called his body brother ass, and he says you need to take care.
You know
You
what?
need to.
That's actually my Tinder profile. It's brother ass 6969. That's my screen name on Tinder. It's works great for me. People love that. It's Francis inspired it.
Oh my goodness! See now, why'd you do that? Why'd you have to
I'm
do
just
that?
saying, playing
My
up for Fran.
beloved Saint Francis, you did that. All right, let me write this down. How many candles do I have to light for you now? But I'm going to burn down my church lighting candles for you. And it's a UCC. We don't even know where the candles are, but I've started lighting them for you. But
Well, you know what? That's fine. I'll take it. I'll take anything you get.
yeah, no, but I think you're. When you wrote that, I thought that was a fascinating thing. It's so kind of basic, but it feels very profound rethinking that.
It is, yeah. It's something that, and I'm doing a lot of exercise right now. I've re-engaged pretty intensive exercise, so I think a lot about how I'm feeling, and I'm doing a lot more yoga too, and so that has helped because it's sort of made me limber and made me able to recover quickly and stuff. But it makes me think about, I used to think, well, certainly the Hebrew Bible doesn't have a super robust concept of the soul, right? I mean,
Right.
it's not as dualistic as a sort of Platonic or even Aristotelian conception, or what you get. The New Testament's got a little more of a worked out view
Well,
of the soul.
yeah, because I think, well, I mean, it's you've got Judaism influenced by both Persian and and Hellenistic thinking there, right? So there's a different, even translating Hebrew into Greek, you suddenly get, yeah, you do get some dualism just from the way the words gets translated, or at least,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, even, or so things that may have been natural phenomena in the Hebrew scriptures, or just the way they thought of the life force, suddenly given Greek terms, and they play nicely into Middle Platonic philosophical thought, which is part of what forms Christianity. I mean, and when you think particularly the Gospel of John, you've got this. The Gospel of John is so full of the Septuagint, so influenced by the Septuagint, but it also feels like a Middle Platonic document, which it kind of is. It's both, right?
I like my Gospels without the Septuagint. Okay. I like my Gospels
Oh,
short.
he and Marcion had that in common.
Exactly. The Marcionites. They're all over the place.
They're
Sometimes
everywhere,
even in Rochester, everywhere. They're
everywhere,
these people.
everywhere.
The Marcionites are everywhere.
And you know what's great about them? There's Marcionites on both sides of the aisle.
All everywhere.
Everywhere. That's what's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. But no, I do think, that's an interesting thing that happens even within the Judaism of the first century, that's part of the raw materials. I mean, I that remember that there was, I guess that goes back to, is this Harnack or before Harnack, the idea of Christianity being a synthesis, right? Or of Judaism and Hellenism. You put the two together, you get Christianity. I know that that's been critiqued in some ways, and it was in style and still in some circles to talk about how the Greek world um, corrupted primitive Christianity, but that's such a lack of understanding of what of the nature of first century or Second Temple Judaism. Second Temple Judaism is shaped by the Hellenistic world.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
so it's you
And
can't.
as you were saying, comes out of in the exile, you're sort of exposed to one of the intellectual centers, right? In Persia, Babylon, and then the Hellenism. I mean, there's a lot of integration of a lot of different
Yeah,
kinds of
it,
ideas.
it's a great. I mean, it's one of the. I mean, it's an amazing time in world history in terms of ideas. Starting like in the 6th century BCE, and then up through the forming of Christianity. When I think I've told this story. I don't know if I've told it on the podcast, but uh, I had given a talk, an interfaith talk up here, and one of the members of the synagogue came up and saying, "Hey, I just want to ask you, why are Christians? Where did the Christians get to all this demon stuff?" You know, I said, "Well, from you all." And she goes, "Because we Jews don't talk about it." I go, "Well, I know you don't now, but it came from Second Temple Judaism." So, and she didn't know what she was. She thought she was shocked. So she said, "We'll have to talk more of that." But no, it's came from lots of the beauty of Christianity is all of the ideas that come together in those first couple centuries are pretty remarkable.
Yeah, and so I mean, I think it is interesting. I think T.S. Eliot attributes this to Nietzsche, where Nietzsche says, some pre-Socratic somewhere comes up with the mind-body problem, and all of a sudden it's a problem, right? It's not just a duality; but that does make a difference, right? The way in which you frame things, right?
Right.
There's this old joke, the story that Darrell Gooder used to tell about these two monks, and they were in the monastery and they were smoking, or one of the monks was smoking, and he said, "What? How can you do that?" I asked the abbot, "Can I smoke when I pray?" And the abbot said, "No." He said, "See, I asked, can I pray when I smoke?" Right, but the prejudicial way of framing the question, right? I mean, how are you framed?
Right.
So if something can be a duality, or it can be a problem, but there is something that we have this sense, right, and contra-physicalism, right? And there's a huge movement in modernity, right? Physicalism, that really there is no immaterial thing about you, right? That everything about you we can put down in chemical equations and
Right.
and electric impulses and things like this, and your neurons firing and stuff. And there's really everything about you: your dreams, your loves, your hopes, your aspirations, your passions, all this can be attributed to just chemical equations and
math.
Yeah, math and electrical
Math and
impulses.
chemistry, yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's actually it's actually what Galileo got in trouble for, that kind of reductionism. And I think that's the thing about it. I don't. It's interesting. Again, I told the story before too. I had a great friend, good, lovely guy, who was a brilliant theoretical mathematician at Penn, and I think he was born in India. He spoke. I mean, grew up in the English school. Says brilliant guy, but he one time said to me, I think it's all math. And he said, "Darwin is my God." And I joked, "Well, your God died last."
It's a problem.
It's a problem. But he laughed. But
I like my philosophers not dead. Okay,
not dead.
I like my scientists to say I'm not for monkeys. Okay.
But the thing is, he had these beautiful children, and I said, "So what is it that you feel for what's the equation for what you feel for your daughter? What is that? Just explain it." So is that just an evolutionary fluke, or is it a higher development of the preservation instinct? And he goes, "All right, you've made your point, right?" I think like it's crazy. Like Dawkins, talks like a religious guy. He has these religious things. Sam Harris goes to the Galilee and talks about having a mystical encounter in the Galilee. So there's something about human experience, regardless of what your philosophical framework, even if you're a mechanistic materialist. Some of the best things in your life are not reducible to that. And I think that's to me, that's not that's is it a problem, or is it the road to the answer? Maybe, right? That's
Yeah,
maybe the beauty of it, right?
yeah, it's interesting. Christian Smith in his book "What Is a Person," which is it's like 500, 600 pages, but he talks about that largely his colleagues, and he's a sociologist. I think he's at Notre Dame now, and he's saying his colleagues in social science have such reductionistic views of the human being that their anthropologies are so reductive. But then they have this robust view when they're talking about human rights or political programs. Right. They're like, basically, I remember that line in Top Gun, your ego's writing checks, your body can't cash, Mav. But that's what he would say, right? That their reductionism is writing checks that can't be, their political program can't cash. So he says that you need something soul-like, and by that he's not making metaphysical claims. He's just saying some kind of emergent property that can be the subject of human rights and individual sovereignty and all this kind of stuff. But that's interesting, that you can have this. We do have this sense, right, that you can be alienated from the thing that takes up the space, right? It's interesting too, the whole mind body problem, which Descartes gets into a lot. But I mean, how does something that doesn't take up space interact with something that does and needs extension and stuff? Like, what's the relationship between? And then, I mean, for the physicalist, it's like, hey, you get in a car accident and everything changes, right? So, what does that say, right? I mean, how eternal is the soul, or how immaterial if it seems like a change in brain chemistry can change your personality? So this is, but maybe that just adds more to the alienated state. Our identity in our bodies is a weird thing, right? It's just
it's a fascinating thing, right? It is. You're right, and
it's a strange, yeah.
Yeah, I love the Shabbat prayer, where the idea that you get it's not in the, well, it kind of is in the prayer. It depends which versions you use. This idea you get a second soul on Shabbat. That there's and I think that's a fascinating idea of this.
Is that a 2-for-1 deal?
As a 2-for-1 deal, I guess, right? But there's something that the idea that the material world is, for 6 days you act like little gods, and then on the 7th day you remember you're not. And I think there's something about that kind of, even the idea of we're created in the creation narrative. Humanity is created is created in the image of God, without necessarily being told what that is, which is part of the beauty of that, right? So it's an open. I mean, you can talk contextually what it is, but it's worth, it's something that people have been thinking about for a couple of thousand years.
Berkouwer or somebody said that you could write an entire Western intellectual history just based on the interpretation of that text.
Yeah, that's
like, what do people say it means? Is it creativity? Is it reason? Is it will? Is it? And that tells you so much about the intellectual milieu you're in culturally.
So it's this remarkable that you're created imago Dei, the image of God, and you're also created the same day that cockroaches are. Humans and creepy crawlies share a day. I think that's
praying mantises.
Yeah, I think it's it's a problem, or it's a reality. Yeah. I think it's at some levels it's part of the mystery of the ordinary, right? The mystery isn't who we are. In some levels, a reminder that it thinks like you kind of think you should know who you are, right? That would seem like that's a fundamental thing, right? But the fact that even that is a mystery, is such a challenge, I think it can point to despair, right? It's like, oh my goodness, I go away to college. Mom and dad drop me off at college. This is awesome. Well, often it leads to some fairly unawesome things. Or then you end up replicating. I can remember when my oldest son came home and said he was going to pledge a fraternity. He says, "Oh, so his brother said, oh, you need a fake family now."
Yeah, right. But these things, that's what's interesting in McGowan's book. I mean, he thinks that these things are this constant search that we're always looking for identities that will make us at home in the world, right? That will make the world seem less problematic, right? Seem like a place from which we're not alienated. Right. And he's kind of like, that's sort of that. The identities never quite pay off, right? I mean, they never quite deliver, and they never free you from the subjectivity. I mean, you've got to act. You've got to figure out answers to pressing questions or stances or where you stand, and you've got to figure out who you are, and the community can't do it for you. I mean, this is not a anti-communitarian rant or anything. It's just because community is what we have. I mean, we don't know. We tend to not be able to. We're social animals, right? So we need traditions, we need communities, we need all these things. But yet, we're not reducible to that. We're not reducible to our bodies. We're not reducible. Like subjectivity is this mysterious thing, and that Todd thinks alienation. When you feel not quite at home, when you feel a little misfit, when you feel you've got some mishigas going on, you're just I don't know that's not a problem necessarily to be overcome. That there's that state. It gives you some opportunity, and there's an invitation there that I think very often we preclude. Right? I mean, it's because I think that we preclude it because it can be scary too.
Yeah, I mean, there's two things that there's so much going. I think this is such a fruitful conversation, and I told you after I read your article, I thought I want to hear more. I want you to talk more about this. Two things have been. Lots of things have been bouncing around my head, but one is one of the last great songs we associate with Johnny Cash is "Hurt," right?
Yeah.
And I mean, June Carter is there on the stairway looking at him. She dies a couple months after that thing is recorded, and yet it's such a commentary on his life. Is that 10 Inch Nails? Who did
9 Inch Nails?
9 Inch Nails. I'm sorry, 9 Inch Nails.
10 Inch Nails. I like that.
9 Inch Nails.
That's a grunge band from Omaha.
Right. They didn't quite make it.
Yeah.
9 Inch. But the writer, I can't think of his name.
Trent. It's not Trent Reznor, right? Is it Trent Reznor?
I don't remember. But he said the songs after he heard Johnny Cash, he says it doesn't belong to us anymore.
Yeah.
And it's such a powerful, powerful thing. The other thing and probably many of our listeners know this poem, and it probably came to your mind as well, is Bonhoeffer, one of the last things Bonhoeffer wrote, that poem, "Who Am I?" And it embodies this conversation. And I haven't read the book. I'd be interested to know if does he reference that poem at all in his book?
He doesn't.
Yeah, but it makes sense. It could be because, and the last line is, as Bonhoeffer goes through all these contradictions that are going on and what people say and what he really feels. Who am I? These questions haunt me, but who am I? I'm yours, or I'm thine's. I belong to God, and that's it's not a bad answer to that question.
Yeah, and maybe in a sense, maybe we're not. There's this phrase that we invoke when we see somebody that's really been suffering with some debilitating disease like ALS or something, or cancer, and then we say they're shadows of their past selves, right? But really, are we shadows of our future selves, right? Are we shadows of an unknown self, right? Are we shadows of a reality that we're even is elusive? Our self is elusive to ourselves.
Yeah, the hope of glory.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
The beat goes on.
Beat goes on. Peace.